Good morning, Legolas. Yes, I can always tell when I've slept better, and a box just lifts my spirits. Something crazy. I'm a little bit tight, and if I do loads of press ups, it seems to go like that, and then I get tension headaches. But there's something interesting that I wanted to talk about today about Frank Bruno. So at the moment, we're in this position in the UK where the immigration seems to be a hot topic because there's people coming over, and they basically seem to want to turn this place into their place, and that obviously creates friction with the people that were already here. Now, when Frank Bruno was a national hero. Frank Bruno was like the light of the UK because he was a big that guy with dark skin, but he was very, very culturally English. He was a Cockney. He ate full English. He was that guy, and that's why he was so popular with everyone because of that. From what I can gather, also he was a bit of a badass in the ring and stuff, obviously. But it strikes me that we're at sort of a crossroads of sorts, but it's very possible for cohesion. But I think in order for that to happen, anyone that comes over to the country needs to get involved in the culture and not try and make it their own. And I think that's really important because, that's what places are. They are the culture, they are the place. Admittedly, the culture in England is not like in other places. It's, especially outside of London, it doesn't actually appear to be all that much. So I think that's why it's easier to take. If we were more quintessentially British, other than, what are the things that stand out in the UK? Sports creams, binge drinking, fish and chips, but fish and chips isn't even that nice. But when I was living in Spain, when I go to a country, I always feel terribly ignorant if I can't speak the language, and I'd really, really feel uncomfortable about it. And I think if the people that were coming over here, excuse me while I get a Diet Coke out the freezer actually, but if the people that were coming over here were integrating in that sort of way, I think there's a huge opportunity for anyone that's not white-skinned to become a national hero, basically. You got to do some cool stuff. Cheers. And cheers, good times, Auntie Doreen. You've got to do something badass, but you've also got to represent the UK. And if you can represent the UK being someone that doesn't have lighter skin, light skin like I have, or pearly white, like the moon. But I think there's a huge opportunity for culture to be brought back together by people not wanting to steal our culture. The problem is there isn't actually all that much of it. That's why if I go to Spain, I speak Spanish. If I go even when I went to Jamaica, I tried to learn patois. So white boy talking that patois. But even still, it's still a representation of the culture of the place, and I don't want to go over. I think this is part of the reason why the Spanish, in particular, because I can't really speak for any other cultures, don't like us, because we go over there, cause chaos, and then don't integrate into society. We want to go and get full English in the morning, and that's fine if you want to do that. But I'm just saying, there may be a situation where, if you were going over to somewhere and you became like that culture, firstly, it's more fun. It's more engaging. It's more. What's the word that I'm looking for? It's better. It's just better. It's just fun. It's nice. You get stuck. It's always like you want to get stuck in. When I used to go and watch the Salford matches, I'd be the one starting the chants for the football, and it's that kind of vibe of just wanting to get stuck in and be one of them type thing. I think the problem is it gets tied in with ego, and then ego is attachment to where you're from, and ego is attachment to if this is the way that we do things. But I'm just saying, if you wanted to create a more harmonious place to live in, it's be respectful of the culture that you're in, and don't try and take it over. Like you can have like they have like Chinatown and things like that, and we don't kick off about that. I just think obviously when there's so many people coming over illegally, we're not doing anything about it, and as a culture we're getting taken advantage of. That isn't great, is it? And that's a polite way of putting it. But immigration in itself is not an issue at all. It's just that once people have moved to somewhere, it's how do they integrate into society, and oftentimes they don't want to. And now we've got the situation in the UK where back in the day when there was sort of, especially with the darker skin, like African, Jamaican, Nigerian immigrants, they ended up becoming very, very English, a lot of them. So you've got like third, fourth generation people with African dark skin. But they're English by accent, they're English by the ways that they are. So I would suggest that there's a huge opportunity for anyone that's sort of from an Arabic background or anyone from an Asian background to become like a national hero. I think there's a huge possibility for anyone that's from like, because they want to be quintessentially English with it. Or Scottish. Scottish is a really good example. Like what's that boxer called? Martin Bacoli. Martin Bacoli is a great example. Firstly, he's a fucking legend. He's a huge, massive bloke. Huge, massive African bloke wearing tartan shorts. I think it's so funny, so cool. He's one of my favourite fighters. I need to watch him more actually. I think he's a proper character. But that's what I'm saying. He's become what's adopted Scottish, hasn't he? And that's the bit that endears you to the culture. Not when you go in there all guns blazing and try and change everything. But then again, like you look at it, like America is built on immigrants. The UK, we're in a situation where if there are communities and cultures that come over and then they don't want to integrate, we've now got generations of it. But like, because I've gone on, you see a school trip now in and around Manchester, and like I've seen 2 school trips, one at Chester Zoo and one at the Trafford Centre golf thing, and there was a full school trip and there was probably 3-4 white kids. In one of them, there's only one white kid. Sorry, British skinned, like, I'm trying to step away from black, white, blue, but there was only one white, really light skinned kid, and I just thought, I have been a step detached from this because I've obviously not, first of all, I don't really watch news. Second of all, I don't have a kid that goes to school, and so I missed out. I don't really see it, and also I live in a predominantly middle class white area. Well, not so much anymore, but I live in a bit of a mixed bag now. But yeah, I just there's so many generations now, and then that becomes, if they don't want to integrate, it becomes a cultural friction. Is probably the best way of saying it. So but how you fix it is doing the Frank Bruno thing. But then the difficulty is outside of London, what is British culture? If you sit down and say what is British culture, it's like, if you go to Spain, it's very easy to say what Spanish culture is. Admittedly, I mean, nowhere's perfect. It's Frank Bruno is an easy example because he was a Cockney guy with African roots or whatever, dark skinned Jamaican maybe. That's an easier example, but yeah, we're becoming what do they call it? Ethnic minority. The risk of sounding Hitler-esque, but the British ancestral people that are British with a really light skin are in risk of becoming a minority in their own in their own motherland. And I don't know if there's anywhere else in the history of the world that would allow that in the same sense. And we have allowed it. The government have allowed it. So it's like, okay, well, why have they allowed it? Because it strikes me as that this can't not be orchestrated, but at the same time, it might just be that we're such a soft touch. You know, the current administration in the UK is very similar to what the Biden administration was like in the US. And I don't know that the Trump administration isn't. I think it's going from one extreme to the other, isn't it? But I think that in a lot of things, like with Nigel Farage, there's got to be someone that breaks the ceiling. There's got to be someone that breaks the ice. There's got to be someone that, and I think in politics, it's sort of the best of a bad bunch, I guess, isn't it? Obviously, it's different situation in the US, and that's probably why reform will get in this time. But Nigel Farage isn't good enough to be Prime Minister, but he's just the guy that's got a big enough mouth at the certain current political climate to make the steps necessary. No shouting, please. But I think, yeah, from what I can see in my very limited understanding of the wider UK, the culture's just being swapped out for something else. That's why I think that's why, you know, Tommy Robinson was from Luton. Don't go on my flowers! Get off my flowers, Biggie! Biggie, get off, not that side. Don't go near my flowers. Okay, now, try and plant some flowers. They're growing nicely, actually. The daisies are coming through. Don't go on my flowers. You've been told off for that before, and you. Not on that side. I've even put barriers in. My dahlias are coming through. I don't want them getting messed up. A few of them now. I need to replant some bulbs on the further side. The water wasn't getting to them because we had a really dry spring. But I've managed to get my hose pipe all. I'm going to poke some more holes in the hose pipe, and so I don't have to go around individually watering them. That's a bit of a pain in the arse at night. So I'm quite pleased there's a little bit more rain. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my flower collection. Although if we were talking about it, the dahlias are coming through, and I've planted some carrots and they're coming through. There's a dahlia that I brought back all the way from Spain, which has a story which I've told before on here. My carrots are coming up, my lettuce is starting to come up, and I've planted along the fence line. I've planted sunflowers and some of the passion flowers. I need to do both of them actually. Onion that was. But yeah, anyway, I really love flowers. I think they're really cool. And growing them from a bulb, see, really cool. Anyway, so we do find ourselves in a situation where generational immigration and a lack of seemingly adherence to whatever the English culture is predominantly why we're facing a new Britain. And I don't know if there's any way of getting around it now, because we're becoming I say we, the people with the historically ancestral British people are at danger and risk of becoming a minority in their own motherland. Biggie, no dogs upstairs! Honestly, it was my birthday, so I let him upstairs, and he just take an inch. What's the phrase? Give him an inch, take a mile. I fucking know a few things like that, don't I? So, yeah, I haven't heard from the baby this morning, which is sad. I think I'm going to struggle. I'm going to struggle to get through, is what I would say. But he's crying a lot yesterday, I think. Which there's nothing that I can do about it. My hands are completely tied because of all the lies that have been told about me, and then because some additional information was passed over when I felt very betrayed. And that's how I ended up getting the criminal record. On top of me shouting, don't get me wrong, look, But like, if you really knew the full story, anyone would be absolutely horrified. Apart from, I'd made enemies within a certain organisation that deemed it that it was in the best interests of the community to ping me with something that I was told by a lawyer that I wouldn't get pinged for. So somewhere along the line, something's happened where someone's decided to take justice against me in a way that wasn't probably necessarily all that conducive to the betterment of the situation. Or, I'll say that. Or, I say that. It actually was in a very weird sense, and this is an interesting point about life, about when you feel like things are going wrong, it's just a door closing for another one to open, and the harder the doors slam. I was gonna say shut. The harder the doors slam, the bigger the next door opens. So it's really, really hard to hold on to that when you're in the thick of it. Like, I felt really, really low of late, and I've had it used against me as well. So I'm feeling really low because X, Y, Z, and it's like, okay, X, Y, Z is then going to get shared and used against me, and it's like, all right, well, you could just stop doing the thing that's making me feel like that. But this is what I mean. Like, sometimes you have to step back and sort of be more objective. But when there's really deep feelings involved, that's the difficulty with anyone that's sort of narcissistic is that they won't listen to any reason. And it doesn't matter how you say or what you say, no matter how just or unjust, no matter how intense or whoever's getting hurt within the situation, it just makes no difference. And unfortunately, one thing that I've been involved in over the course of my life on a number of occasions, sorry, somebody just texted me about the van, is unfortunately dealing with people that exert narcissistic tendencies and you can't win. There's nothing that you can say or do, and everything's just twisted. And that is something that I found to be frustrating. But even when I got in trouble this time, when I stepped back many months ago and sort of like, look, I don't need your love anymore, but there's a little baby that does, so can we just like not make his life, his development negatively affected? Fell on deaf ears. Leave the shoe. I hope and pray that even though my hands have been tied behind my back, that, you know, he stays in the country, and, you know, I hope that eventually he'll find his way back to me, you know, and I just have to keep double down on my faith, like. And look, looking after a baby is hard work. Looking after a little kid, it's not as difficult in the same way when the difficulty arose from having two massive dogs, who conversely are now more trained than they were, which they weren't before. So I'll have to try and see him today. Let's hope that communication is permissible. But what's one life lesson? Before you go to sleep in the night, there's different types of sleep. There's I'm gonna butcher this, but there's a sleep. You know, just before you fall asleep, you go into like this. I think they call it beta sleep consciousness. my understanding is that when you fall asleep, you go into consciousness. You drift into, unconscious. You go into consciousness, and consciousness is the space that the space that our human computer can't compute. If that makes sense. We've got 5 senses, 5 programs in which to download the information of this, whatever this is in and around us. And I think that when you go into consciousness, you go into the other areas where we don't have human access to. And just before you fall, and something happens when you're in that state, that's why you dream, and that's why you process. And I think that there's a possibility, well, having done this, speaking from personal experience, the last thing you say, you've heard about people talking about this, but the last thing you say to yourself is the thing that you process while you're asleep. Or the last thing that you do before bed, whether that be Netflix or whatever, it will affect how you sleep. And sleep is a really big thing. I'm getting tired now from this video, so I'm going to shoot in a minute. But the last thing that you say to yourself, so a good example would be if I say to myself, I am ready, just before I fall asleep, then my subconscious, my unconscious, my whatever the other bit is, can sort of prepare me for that thing. It's really weird how it seems to work. So if you want patience, so I used to say, I'm happy, I'm adult, I'm safe, I'm important, I'm valued, I'm loved. And I would say that every night before I fell asleep for a while, because obviously it was linked to my abuse. I'm happy, I'm adult, I'm safe. And then I started feeling it, and then I sort of manifested it in my human computer. And so last night, I wanted to say last night, I'm ready. But if you do that, if you can have some calm time before bed, screen time off, read something light, like an autobiography of someone like Billy Connolly or something really light, even for 5 minutes. This is how I can promise you, this is how you'll get a really, really good sleep. Stay off your phone when you're in bed as much as permissible. When you then read a book, if you can read it by red light, that's also, not by blue light, by red light, that'll calm your nervous system. If you read a book by red light or lamp, like warm lamp light, for even if it's 5 minutes, and then when you go to close the book, before you turn your light off, say whatever it is that you want to manifest. I am patient. I am the oldest person to turn professional at rugby. I am British boxing champion. I am happy. I am safe. I am loved. Whatever it is. And just see. Where I got to with this stuff was, if it is, it gets kind of like a hokey pokey reputation, because you get quite a lot of like extroverted women that are into it with sort of different colour hair. But I was like, do you know what? If this, I was having a hard time. I was just like, do you know what? If this stuff is actually real, I'm just gonna try it and see what happens. And I'm also gonna ask for like obscenely enormous things. But the problem is with manifesting and prayer is that God will give you what you ask for. He just won't give you. If I pray for £1 million, He's not going to just give you £1 million. He'll give you the life lessons and the journey in order to make it, as long as you stick to the 10 Commandments. As far as I can see. So yeah, that's the end of the video, Dad. So today's a good day. Good sleep. Did my passion. Yesterday was a challenge. Today is a new day. Let's find what you love and do loads of it. And watch my video on side hustling. If you don't like your job and you want to be an entrepreneur and have more flexibility and more money, watch my video about anyone can side hustle into entrepreneurship, because it's never been easier to get out of a job that you hate. And I used to work in private equity, which is buying and selling businesses, so I kind of know a little bit, at the very least, what I'm on about. Goodbye, internet. Have a wonderful... Is it Thursday today? Oh, I can go to the butcher's. Peace out, players.